Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Tutorial Take Cut here, and in today's tutorial I'll be taking you through the process of how to cut and sew this beautiful Bustier maxi gather dress with back looping or lacing. If this video is a video you're interested in, please watch to the end, and don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also turn on your notification bell to be notified whenever we post a new video. So basically for this tutorial, these are the materials that I'll be working with, and I have this Ankara piece. I have about 3 yards here, but to be on a safer side, I would advise to make use of 3.5 for your gathers to be much fuller than mine. So I have 3 yards of Ankara piece. You can also use any material to substitute this. I also have this about half yard of stay. You can use the white one too, or any color of stay you have. Now this is for the bustier part of this dress. I also have this little piece of wording that you see over here because I want to be padding the bust part of this dress because the owner is not busty. So if you're busty, you can go ahead and skip this wording. Now the next thing I have here is a lining. I have about half yard of lining here for the turn up of the bustier area part, and this is the materials I'll be working with. I'm going to go ahead and place this aside so that we can go ahead and draft our upper body for this dress. Now remember that the upper body is a bustier part, so I'm just going to go ahead and use this paper right here to illustrate it. Then after which we are going to go ahead and place it directly on our fabric to cut it out. So I have my paper here and it's already folded in two. So just go ahead and mark your shoulder line, or you can go ahead to use this tip over here as your shoulder length. So for me, I'll be making use of this tip here as our shoulder length. Now the next thing I'm just going to go ahead and do right now is to impute our vertical measurements. Now make sure you take your measurements correctly. So from the shoulder line, I'm going to go ahead and mark my bust point, and the bust point that I'm working with is 9.5 inches. So I'm just going to mark 9.5 inches. I'll go ahead and mark my under bust. From the shoulder to your under bust, mine is 13 inches. Then I'll also go ahead and mark my waist length. That's from your shoulder to your waist. Mine is 16 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this down, and I'll be adding extra half of an inch for joining it to our gathered area. So I'm just going to go ahead and extend these lines. So basically at this point, I was done extending the lines, and this is what I have here. So I'm just going to go ahead and label it. This is our bust point, this is our under bust length, and this is our waist length, and this is the allowance line. That's the half inch we added earlier. So at the shoulder line, I'm going to go ahead and divide my shoulder to shoulder measurement. Mine is 16 inches. 16 inches divided by 2 is 8 inches. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark 8 inches at this point. Then I'll go ahead and take my armhole measurement round. My armhole measurement is also 16 inches. 16 inches divided by 2 is also 8 inches. So at this point that I marked my shoulder to shoulder measurement, I'm going to be marking our armhole measurement, which is 8 inches in a vertical way. And I'm going to be connecting the line here and extending the line outward, just like you see me do over here. So after marking that down, as you can see, the next thing I'm just going to go ahead and do is to get our neck width. So for the neck width, I'll be working with 3 inches. My measurement is from this folded edge. I'm going to go ahead and mark 3 inches. Then from the depth, I'm going to be working with 2 inches or 3 inches, depending on what you want. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark 2 inches for my own neck depth. And I'm going to be connecting it for us to get our neck curve. So after getting our neck curve, at this shoulder line, I'm going to be coming down by 1 inch for us to get our shoulder slope, just like you see me do over here. And I'll be connecting this 1 inch you see over here down to our neck width line in a vertical way. So after that, I'm going to go ahead and measure what I have from this 1 inch to this point. And I have about 7 inches. And I'm going to go ahead and divide these 7 inches into 2, which is 3.5 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and mark 3.5 inches. At this point, I mark 3.5. I'm going to be coming in at this point by half of an inch. I don't know if you can see. So I'm going to go ahead and connect this half of an inch back into this 1 inch line that you see me do over here. So after that, I'm going to go ahead and mark my round bust measurement divided by 4, and I'm working with the round bust of 36. 36 divided by 4 is 9 inches. So I'm just going to go ahead and measure 9 inches at this 8 inches line that we have here. So this is the 9 inches that I marked here. I don't know if you can see. So I'm going to go ahead and connect this 9 inch that I have here back into this half of an inch line in a curving way for us to get our armhole curve. So after that, this is what we have here. Now, these 8 inches that we have here will be serving as our chest line. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark CL here for it to be our chest line. I don't know if you can see. Now I'm going to go ahead and extend this line all the way down to the center part of this paper. So after extending the line, this is what I have here. Now the next thing I'm just going to go ahead and do is to get my nipple to nipple measurement. Now go ahead and measure yours. So for me, my nipple to nipple measurement is 8 inches. So at this folded edge, at the underbust length line, I'm going to be going in by my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2, which is 4 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and mark 4 inches at this point and also mark it at my waist length. I don't know if you can see. And also go ahead and mark it at my bust point. So now I'm going to go ahead and connect this 4 inches line together. Now after that, the next thing I'm just going to go ahead and do right now is to come in at this folded edge. Now this measurement I'm going to be taking now is constant for everybody, but the slightly difference here is I'm going to be coming in at this point by half of an inch. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark half of an inch at this point. Now, if you're busty, just go ahead and add 1 inch starting from this point. But if you're not busty, just go ahead and add half of an inch from this point. So after marking the half of an inch at the waistline, I'm going to be marking in half of an inch too at the under bust line. I don't know if you can see. Then at this other side of our paper, at this other side, I'm going to be adding 1.5. I don't know if you can see. Then if you're busty, just go ahead and do 2 inches to 2.5 inches, depending on how busty you are. So the next thing I'm just going to go ahead and do is to connect this line and this line together, connect this half inch and this half inch together in a vertical way. So after connecting the lines, this is what it is looking like. Now the next thing I'm just going to go ahead and do is to come at this shoulder line that you see over here. I'm going to be measuring what I have from this point to our neck width, and I have 5 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and divide this 5 inches into 2. That should be 2.5. So I'm going to be marking 2.5 at this part. I don't know if you can see. Marking the midpoint, I'm going to go ahead from this midpoint that I have. I'm going to be coming in from this point. I'm going to be coming in by 0.75. I don't know if you can see, but if you are busty, just go ahead and do 1 inch. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. So from this point, I came in by 0.75 because the owner is not busty. But if you're busty, just go ahead and do 1 inch for your own part. Now at the other side too, I'm just going to go ahead and mark 0.75. So now remember that this is the center. So I went in by this point by 0.5 inch. I also came out at this point by 0.5 inch. Now this center one that we marked, I'm going to be connecting the line back into this line that you see over here. I don't know if you can see. So I'm going to go ahead and connect the lines this way. But before that, just go ahead and extend this center line that we have here down to your chest line this way. I went ahead to extend the line. Then from this point, I'm going to be connecting it all the way down to the center measurement that we had earlier, just like you've seen me do over here. So this is what we have. Now I'm going to be connecting this 0.75 inches back into this point that we have at our chest line. Just watch what I'm doing if you don't understand what I'm saying. So from this 0.75, I'm going to be connecting it back into this point, and the 0.75, I'm going to be connecting it back into this point. Now, I don't know if you can see what I did here. Now, the next thing I'm just going to go ahead and do right now is for us to get our curving part. So in a curving way, I'm going to be connecting this on the bust length all the way down to this bust point line, just like you see me do over here. So after connecting the curvy part, this is what I have here. I don't know if you can see. So the next thing I'm just going to go ahead and do is to connect this half of an inch to in a curvy way back into this bust point line, just like you see me do over here. So at this point, after covering it, this is what we have here. I don't know if you can see. Now let me just go ahead and blend in these lines for it to look very neat at the end of the day. So after that, the next thing I'm just going to go ahead and do is to determine how I want the off shoulder part of this dress to be. From the chest line, just go up by 2 to 3 inches. So for me, I'll be going up by 2 inches for your sweetheart neck area. So from the center part, just go ahead and blend this in. Make sure that this point is pointed into this line. So after that, just go ahead and raise your hand a little bit in a curvy way, just like you're going up a mountain or something, just like you see over here. Now make sure that at the end of the day that this point that you have here lands back into this armhole measurement. I don't know if you can see. I don't know if you can see. So that is that for the sweetheart neck area. Now, when you cut out this part and open it up, it will be giving you that V shape or that sweetheart neck form. Now, the next thing I'm just going to go ahead and do is I want this piece to be extended to the back piece. So what I'm just going to go ahead and do, instead of cutting the back piece separate, I'm going to be extending it with this front piece. So at this point that I have my 9 inches, now remember that this is the 9 inch that we have here. So I'm just going to go ahead and impute my underbust measurement. The underbust that I'm working with is 32 inches. So 32 inches divided by 4 is 8.25. So I'm going to go ahead and mark 8.25 at the underbust length. And after that, I will measure what I have here. Remember, I added 1.5 inch and half inch here. That's 2 inch in total. So I'm going to go ahead and replace the 2 inch here. I don't know if you can see, and I will not be adding any allowance. Now my waistline measurement too is 8.25, so I'm just going to go ahead and mark 8.25 and replace this measurement that is here because it will be going out. So I have 2 inches here in total. I'm going to go ahead and replace 2 inches at this point. Now at the bust point, I'll go ahead and impute my round bust measurement, which is 36 divided by 4 is 9. So I did not replace anything because there is no space at this point. So we are not going to be removing anything. So I just had to place exactly the measurement that I have at this point. Now for the back extension, I'm going to be going out by 4 inch because I want it to extend a little bit to the back piece. So I want 4 inches for it. Now how I got the 4 inches was I divided my round bust measurement into 6. So 36 divided by 6 is kind of 4. So I went ahead to impute 4 inches from all these locations that I have here. I don't know if you can see. So after that, I'm just going to go ahead and connect these lines together. Now, at the end of the day, after connecting it, this is what I have here. I don't know if you can see. Now, don't mind this lantern line here. When I close up these 2 inches, the lines are going to be the same thing. So after that, the next thing I'm just going to go ahead and do now is to work on the dart area. So at this bust point line that I have here, this point that we marked our initial round bust measurement before adding the extra 4 inches, I'm going to be marking 1 inch at this point. I don't know if you can see. Now, from that point that I marked 1 inch downwards, I'm going to be connecting it into the center point that we have here in a vertical way for us to get our dart. Now go ahead and extend it all the way down to the measurement that you have here. Now after that, I'm just going to go ahead and cut this out. While cutting this, just be very careful not to cut the right part. So after that, this is what we have here. Now we are going to go ahead and close up this dart that you see over here. So for this dart, just go ahead and pick this line that you drew above this point. I don't know if you can see. Just go ahead and pick it and go ahead. After picking it, just go ahead and fold it onto this straight line that you have here. So this is it. So after folding that in, this is what we have here. So I'm just going to go ahead and use a pin to hold it down so that it doesn't open up while cutting it on the main fabric. So after that, I'm just going to go ahead. If you look at this, you see that there is excesses at this point. So I'm just going to go ahead and use my scissors to blend it in for the other sides to be equal, just like you see me do over here. And this is what we have. So this is the center front of our bustier. This is what it should be looking like. Now this is that sweetheart neck area that I told you about, and this is what the sides will be looking like. Now the next thing we are going to go ahead and do right now is to fold our fabric so that we can go ahead and cut out this piece. Basically, I went ahead to cut out this piece so that we'll go ahead and work with it for the cutting of this front pattern. Now, as you can see, this is the center front that we have here. I went ahead to fold my fabric into two. I made sure that this closed center front part is folded, is facing a full part of this fabric, just like you see me do over here. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep this way. Now for the cutting of this, I'm going to be adding about half of an inch by the sides of this center front, and I'll be adding half of an inch too at the upper part because we'll be attaching it with a lining. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut out about half of an inch from this neck place down to the sides with half of an inch. Now, while adding your half of an inch to it, make sure that it is exactly the same shape with the sides, just like we have here. So we've gotten our center front. Opening this up, this is what it is looking like. So the next thing I'm just going to go ahead and do is to place this aside and fold our fabric again into two for us to be able to cut this piece that you see over here. After folding my fabric into two for this piece, now we'll also go ahead and be attaching half of an inch to the center part of this side piece that you see over here. Now I'll make sure too that the half of an inch is exactly the same shape of this pattern paper that you have here. So I'll be adding half of an inch from this point all the way down, and I'll also go ahead and add half of an inch at the armhole line. Now for the sides, I'll go ahead and extend the side with about 1 inch for turning it over with our loops area. Now you can also go ahead and add 1.5 or 2 inches. So for me, let me just do 2 inches because of the attaching of the loop and also for the turning of the lining. So I added extra 2 inch from the side. So every other side now from this point will be half of an inch. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut this out. After cutting this out, this is what it is looking like, as you can see. Now the next thing I'm just going to go ahead and do is to use these pieces that we cut out right now to cut out the lining facing of this dress and also cut out the stay for it. So at the end of the day, we should be having a piece that is looking like this. I don't know if you can see. Now this is the extension of the back piece. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut my lining piece exactly with these pieces and also cut out my stay exactly with this piece. At this point, I was done cutting out the lining piece. Now this is the lining piece. As you can see, it is exactly the same shape as our main fabric that we cut out earlier. So this is it. This is the lining piece. Now placing this aside, I also went ahead to cut out the stay just like I told you earlier. So this is the stay for the center front, exactly the same shape of it, and this is the stay for the other side of our piece. Now I'm going to go ahead and arrange it so that you see exactly what it looks like. So I went ahead to cut exactly the same shape as it was. So this is what we have here. I don't know if you can see. Now the next thing I'm just going to go ahead and do is to keep this lining aside because we'll be working with it later. Now I'm going to go ahead and bring our main piece just like you see me do over here. And I'll go ahead and apply my stay on it with a very hot iron. Now make sure that the gum area of your stay is facing the back piece of your main fabric. Now the gum area is this rough edge that you can see. So I went ahead to place it this way at the back piece. And also I went ahead to bring the side part of this. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over too, just like you see me do over here. So placing the hairstay directly on the fabric, this is what it should look like. So I'm going to go ahead and use a hot iron to gum this piece directly to this piece, and that will be it for it. So for the wording that I told you earlier, I'm going to go ahead and cut out a wording for this side. I'm going to be cutting a wording that will be covering from this point to half of this point. I don't know if you can see. And for the center part, I'll cut out a wording from this neck area to be stopping about half of an inch of this point. I don't know if you can see. I'm not going to be doing it fully, so I'm just going to go ahead and attach a wording to it. Now for this other side, to attach a wording from this point down to this curve. Now I'm going to go ahead and attach my own. I'll show you what it looks like at the end. So if you're busty, just like I said before, just attach only your stay. Don't bother with the wording, because this wording is just for someone that is not busty, so that it can give you a firm look at the end of the day. So I'm going to go ahead and do it and show you what it looks like at the end. At this point, I was done attaching the stay and the wording to it, and this is what I was talking about. And if you notice, I left about half of an inch at this upper part, so that when I'm returning it over with the lining, it will not give any bulge. So for this one, I'm still going to go ahead and cut out this little piece. So this is what it looks like after attaching it. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to the right side, just like you see me do over here, because we'll be joining it. So I'm going to go ahead and take one side of this our piece and place on this piece. Now I'm going to be pinning it down for you to see what it looks like. While sewing, make sure you start from the waist length of your dress. I don't know if you can see. So I'm going to join it. So while joining it, just make sure that this curvy part blends into that our center front. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. So when I get to this point, I'm going to go ahead and drag this side, just like you see me do over here. Now drag it to make sure that it is equal, because if you don't drag it, you won't be getting that curvy shape at the end of the day. So I'm just going to go ahead and pin it down. Now this is what the other side is looking like. I don't know if you can see. So let's just go ahead and pin the other side. After pinning this down, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for you to see what it looks like. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you what it looks like. Now we are to be getting a curvy look this way. I don't know if you can see. So let's just go ahead to our sewing machine. I'm going to be using about half of an inch to stitch with the same line. When I get to this under bust part, I don't know if you can see this. When I get to this under bust part, I'm going to be covering it the same way that our side part is looking like. Now also go ahead and do the same thing for this other side. I'll also go ahead and do the same thing for the lining piece that we cut out earlier. So I'll be joining the two sides too with a half of an inch, the same way I joined the main fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for these two pieces. So after that, I was done joining the sides, and this is what the inner part is looking like. I don't know if you can see. Now turning this over to the right side, I will have something like this. And if you notice, our cup area or the bust part area is visible. I don't know if you can see this. So it's already visible, just like you see over here. Now the next thing we are going to go ahead and do is to place this aside. Now this is the lining piece. I also went ahead to do the same thing, just like I told you. So I'm going to go ahead and place this aside for us to work on the loop area, and also for the straps for the looping before we turn this over with our lining piece. So for the loops, I went ahead to cut out this band that you see over here, and the length of this band is 36 inches and the width is 2 inches not unfold. So I'm just going to go ahead and fold in. Now this particular one is for the loops that we are going to be making. So I'm going to go ahead and fold in half of an inch from both sides, fold in half of an inch, fold in half of an inch, and fold it again together. So I'm going to go ahead and top stitch directly on top of this band that you see over here for us to get this tiny piece for our loops. Now for the strap area too, I went ahead to cut out these two bands that you see here. Now this straps is for the lacing. Now the length of these two bands that I have here is 45 inches, 45 inches. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the same folding that I showed you for the one that we'll be making use of for the loops. So for the strap, is still the same folding, folding half of an inch, folding half of an inch, then fold it again. I don't know if you can see. Fold it again, and I'll just go ahead and top stitch on the folding all through the length of these two bands that we have for our strap. This point, after folding the straps, this is what it's looking like. So this two is the one of 45 inches for the strap. Then this one is a 36-inch one for the loops that I will be making. So I'm going to go ahead and place these ones aside. Now the one of 33-inch by length, I'm going to be cutting it out for our loops. Now for the loops, the measurements that you will use will differ depending on what you want. So for me, I think I'll be making use of the loops of 2.5 inches by length. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut 2.5 inch, just like you see me do over here. Now I want to make about 8 loops in total. That's going to be cutting 8 pieces of this piece that you see over here, 4 for the other side and 4 for the other side. Cutting out the loops, this is what I have here. So I have 4 pieces here and 4 pieces there, making it 8 pieces in total. So I'm going to go ahead and bring our main piece of the upper body that we had earlier. So this is it. Now for the straps that we have here, I'm going to go ahead and bring the folded band that we have earlier for of the one of 45 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and take this strap that you see over here and place it directly on this line that we joined there. So I'm going to go ahead and place it this way and use my pin to hold it down, just like you see me do over here. And I'll also go ahead and bring the other strap that we folded earlier and place it to directly at this point that we have here. So placing it, I'm going to go ahead and pin it down too. So after that, the next thing we are going to go ahead and do right now is to work on the loops. So for the loops, the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is to come over to this side that we have our back piece. I'm going to be folding these loops into two, just like you see me do over here. And I'll be making sure that this closed folded edge, this part that does not have an opening, is facing inward this way. So I'm going to go ahead and mark 1/2 inch downward first. So I came down by 1/2 inch because of the turn up that we'll be doing. So I'm going to go ahead and fold these loops that we cut out earlier, making sure that this close folded edge is facing inward this way. And I'm going to be pinning it down this way. So from that point that I have here, I'm going to be coming down by 1.5 inch. Now it depends on how full you want your loops to be or how close. You can choose to do 1 inch, you can choose to do 2 inches. But for me, I'll be doing 1.5 inch. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark 1.5 inch. From that point to, I'll go ahead and mark 1.5 inch again. From that point to, I'll go ahead and mark 1.5 inches, just like you see over here. So at this point, it looked like I had enough space. So I'm just going to go ahead and do more 1.5 inch. That means I'm going to be cutting extra one loops for the last piece because we already cut out 4. So I have 5 in total here. I'm going to be cutting it out to make sure that it is in order. So I'm going to go ahead and bring the loops and place it directly on these lines that I marked earlier. So I'll go ahead and pin it down too. At this point, I was done pinning down the loops, just like I showed you earlier for both sides. And this is what it is looking like. You might not see it because of the fabric that I'm making use of, but I pinned it down. And the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do now is to bring the lining that we joined earlier, the same way we joined for our main piece. I'm going to go ahead and place this lining right side facing each other. Now, this is the right side of the lining. I'm going to be placing it this way, just like you see me do over here, making sure that all the sides are equal. Now I'm going to go ahead and go over to my sewing machine, and I will start from the center point of this neck area that we have. I'm going to be joining the lining and the main piece about 1/2 inch from this point all the way down to the sides. Then from the side, I will come down straight to this part I don't know if you can see. I'll join from this neck area with half of an inch all the way down. Then when I get to this part that I attached our loops, I'll also use half of an inch to join it together. And I'll also go ahead and do the same thing, starting from this center in a V shape too. I'll join it with half of an inch all the way down to this point. And when I get to this point, I'll use half of an inch to join both the loops and the lining and the main fabric together. And I'll flip it over to the right side to show you what it looks like. And I'll also top stitch it. After doing that, I'll go ahead and top stitch on it. So basically at this point, I was done stitching down the neck area and the sides, and this is what it is looking like. As you can see, this is the wrong side of it, and this is the right side of it. And our loops is facing outwards, just like you can see here. So the next thing I'm just going to go ahead and do is to place this aside so that we can work on the gathered area of this dress. So for the gathered area, I just have this remaining fabric here. So I had to measure it, and I had about 2 yards and 19 inches after cutting off the other upper body. So I'm just going to go ahead and use everything that I have on this material for the gathered. So I also went ahead to run 2 lines of loose stitch from this point down to the end of this fabric. I run a loose stitch, first line and the second line. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick out one thread from the 2 lines that I ran a gathered loose on. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up the 2 threads this way, and I'll go ahead and drag it. Now for the purpose of this, just go ahead and do your normal gathers the way you did it. So for me, I'm going to go ahead and be dragging this till I get my round waist measurement, and my round waist measurement is 32 inches. So I'll drag this till I get 32 inches in total. So basically at this point, I was done attaching my gathers to it. So I went ahead to remeasure the waist area to make sure that it is up to 32 inches, and this is what I have here. Now remember that we'll be attaching a zipper to this down part. If you want yours to be on a normal size, just add extra 1 inch to your round waist measurement. So instead of doing 32 inches, just go ahead and do 34 inches since it's not on fold. So me, I want my waist part to be very tight. That is why I'm not adding any zipper allowance to it. So I'm just going to be taking about half of an inch from the sides to sew in my zipper. So after that, this is what we have for the gathers. Now the next thing I'm just going to go ahead and do is to cut out a waistband, a 2 different piece waistband of about the same 32 inches. Basically at this point, I went ahead to join it together with a stitch, and I flipped it upward. So this is what you should be having at the end of the day. So this is serving in form of a band that we attach to it. So this is what the right side is looking like, as you can see, and this is what the wrong side is looking like. Now the next thing I'm just going to go ahead and do is to fold this gathered piece equally into 2 for us to get the center. So I'm going to go ahead and notch the center part of this gathered stitch, just like you see me do over here. So I notched it. I'm going to go ahead and open it up. So after that, I'm going to go ahead and bring that front piece that we worked on earlier, the upper body of this dress. I'll also go ahead and fold it into 2 equal parts this way for us to get the center too. So I'm going to go ahead and notch the center part of this upper body. So after getting the center, I'm just going to go ahead and place this fabric this way. Now I'm going to be inserting this upper body that we have here into this open space that we have. So I'm going to make sure that the center part is facing each center part, just like you see me do over here. Now how we are going to be attaching this to this fabric is, we are going to go ahead and fold in half of an inch from this inner band that we have. I'm going to fold in half of an inch to it. Now I'll go ahead and place this upper body directly, making sure that the center part is facing the center part. I'll make sure that this center part or this upper body is facing or on top of that folded half of an inch that I folded in, and I'll place it this way. Now you can also use your pin to hold it down. Now after holding it down, just go ahead and fold in half of an inch from this upper band too, and place it directly on this fabric too. So I'm going to go ahead and top stitch on it from this point to this point. Now I'll go ahead and explain again. From the inside band, fold in half of an inch
and place your upper body on the half of an inch you folded in. Then go ahead and take this outside band, this one that is facing the front area, fold it half of an inch too and place it on top of this upper body and top stitch it. So we are going to go ahead and top stitch from this center point to this point all the way down to the end of this band. I will also go ahead and do the same thing for this part. Basically at this point, I was done attaching the bands to it, and this is what the wrong side is looking like. As you can see, this is what the right side is looking like. Now the next thing I'm just going to go ahead and do is to bring my zipper. I'm going to be inserting my zipper to this dress. So for the zipper length, from the waistline there, I'll be coming down by 9 inches or 8 inches. So I'll go ahead and do 8 inches instead, since this is a free dress. So my zipper from this point will be stopping at this 8 inches. And I'll go ahead and use about 1 inch, starting from this 8 inches to join the sides of this dress together and close it up. And I'll also go ahead and fold the full length of our dress, and our dress is ready. So technically that's the end of this tutorial. Please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also turn on your notification bell to be notified whenever we post a new video. See you in our next video. Bye.